Greetings and welcome to our Sunday evening message. Tonight we are continuing our study of world religions and major cults, and we're going to be looking at Hinduism this evening. We have looked at Roman Catholicism, we have looked at Islam, and now we will look at Hinduism for the next three or four messages. And so, as with any of our topics or our religions that we're studying, the first thing we want to do is look at its origins. Where does it come from? When was it founded? Who founded it? Well, we know that Hinduism comes from India's Indus Valley, and of course that is probably something that you had maybe figured out, that it comes from India. Most of the Hindus that we might see are from India, and it's from the Indus Valley. And you'll see on this map that is on your slide here, the word India there in the lower right-hand corner, that represents India as a nation itself. Then you'll see right above that in red the name of Pakistan with that arrow that points all the way to the left. So Pakistan is over to the left, or the northwest of the Indus Valley, and India is to the right of the Indus Valley. And this is where Hinduism began. And it began between 2300 to 1500 BC. And so that is roughly the time of the patriarchs of the Bible. And this is when scholars believe Hinduism started. And if we connect this to the Bible, if you remember at the Tower of Babel, so we got to go all the way back to Genesis for this, but you remember at the Tower of Babel, all the people were together and they built this tower to make a name for themselves. And what did God do? God scattered them and confused their language. And so possibly this comes out of that action of God. Now, as far as the founder goes, there is no one founder, or as far as people can tell, there was no founder. It was more of a combination of things, I guess we could say, that end up with the formation of Hinduism. Hinduism is a very diverse religion that has lots of aspects and lots of parts, and even like Christianity, it has different denominations and different sects that are involved in it that have a core of similar belief, but they express it in different ways. Well, now let's consider the extent of Hinduism today. First, we should know that there are 1.25 billion Hindus worldwide today. This makes it the third largest religion. The first is Christianity, and the second is Islam. Of course, when we say the first is Christianity, we need to recognize that is everyone who claims to be a Christian would fit in that category. Not that they're born-again believers, but that they at least claim to be Christian. And we also know that 95% of the world's Hindus live in India. And so maybe we can put that another way and say 95% of the world's Hindus are Indian, and most of which who live in India. Of course, we know that there are more and more Hindus or Indians moving into the United States, and so that's something for us to recognize. Well, some general facts about this religion. The first thing we should notice is that it is synchronistic. That's the word. I was stumbling over the pronunciation of that word. Synchronistic. And that just means that it's a combining of many thoughts and ideas. It's bringing those things together. It's sort of like a synthesis. And so it's bringing many ideas and many thoughts together. It's also henotheistic. And this is the idea that they worship one God, Brahma, but they recognize many gods and many goddesses. And so while there is just one God or one supreme being, they recognize many other gods and many other goddesses. Now, they have three dominant ideas, and I'm really simplifying this. So if you know a good bit about Hinduism, this might seem overly simplistic, but for our purposes, it's, I think, what we can understand, wrap our brains around here. And the first thing is samsara. Samsara, and this is the continuous cycle of life. And this is where death and reincarnation come in. And so one of the things that Hindus believe in is reincarnation, and this comes under this dominant idea of samsara. Secondly is karma. Maybe you've heard of that before, but it is the law of cause and effect. Everything has a cause and effect. And this is a kind of fatalism that we see in pagan religions. There's always this cause and effect that goes on. It's deterministic. You can't get out of it. What is. Then thirdly, the third dominant idea is that every living thing, whatever falls into the category of being a living thing, so this would be animals, plants, every living thing has a soul. Okay, so everything that is alive has a soul. Now, I want to look at some particular doctrines and beliefs that Hindus have. Number one, we already said that every living thing has a soul, and so the souls of all living things are a part of the supreme soul. You are connected to every other living thing. So everything's connected. All living things are connected together in this unifying principle of the supreme soul. Secondly, the goal of life is moksha. Moksha, which is salvation. This would be the concept of salvation within Hinduism. It is when that continuous life cycle of death and reincarnation, the samsara, it's when that comes to an end and one is absorbed into the supreme soul. And so, in fact, salvation in Hinduism is when you cease to be an individual and you are absorbed into the supreme soul. Also, there's the concept of dharma. And so this is like their code of conduct. It's about living a good and moral life. And so these are some of the particular doctrines. There's many more, but these are just three of the particular doctrines that Hindus would hold to. Now let's take a look at their holy books. Every religion that is out there has some sort of holy book or something that holds their codification of what they believe. And in Hinduism, these holy books are called Vedas. They are collectively called Vedas. So individual one would be a Veda, and plural is Vedas. And let me give you some examples of these. There is the Rig Veda, the Rig Veda. There is the Sama Veda, the Yajurveda, and the Atharva Veda. And so these are going to be the four main holy books. Now, there are other books that they view as holy and sacred, but these are the four main ones. And as we think about these four books, they're all constructed in the same way, just like our Bible is constructed in a certain way. You know, if we think about our English translations of the Bible, we have the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. Then there is the historical books. Then there are the poetical books. Then the prophetic books of the Old Testament. All that's the Old Testament. Then you come into the New Testament, and you have the Gospels, you have the book of Acts, you have Paul's epistles, then you have the general epistles, and you have Revelation. And so our Bible is constructed in a certain way, it's composed in a certain way, and so are the Vedas. They are constructed and composed in a certain way, and they have 4 parts. And so let's look at these 4 parts here real quickly. The Samhitas, and this is a collection of mantras, things that would be repeated over and over again, hymns and prayers. And so these are the things that people do as they participate in worship, as they participate in the practice of their religion. So the Samhitas. Then there's the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas, these are the instructions for the Samhitas. So they tell you how are you supposed to do the mantras, the hymns, and the prayers, that sort of thing. How do you do other things that relate to the practice of your religion? That is found in the Brahmanas. The third part of the Vedas is the Arayankas, I should say. And this section provides the philosophical basis for the Brahmanas. And so you're starting to see how these go together. This is the first one, the Samhitas, this is what you do, this is what is done. The Brahmanas, this is how you do these things. And the Arayakas provides the reasoning behind it, the philosophical basis for these things. Then finally you have the Upanishads, and this provides the focus or the point of the Veda. And it deals with the moksha. It deals with salvation. How are you saved according to the Hindu faith, and particularly according to the Veda, the particular Veda you are looking at. And so these are how they put together. They're put together very logically and thoughtfully. And so the Hindus have these multiple holy books that they use, and this would be their Bible. Now, real quick, I just want to take a look at some Hindu symbols. Maybe you see these symbols around. Maybe you go to a shop and there'll be these symbols that you see on the wall, or doctor's office. Maybe that's a little bit too stereotypic to think that Indians are doctors, but a lot of Indians are doctors. But maybe you'll see something like this on their wall, and you might wonder, well, what's that all about? And so the first symbol is the swastika. Now, of course, this has a very negative connotation for us today, especially in the Western world, with its connection to the Nazis of World War II. But that's not the way it has always been. This was an ancient symbol. The Nazis did not invent the swastika. They just used it for their own purposes. It's a sign of luck and fortune. You'll notice it has 4 parts or 4 wings to it, and these 4 wings represent honesty, truth, purity, and stability. And the points, or some people say the angles, also represent the 4 Vedas, those 4 Vedas that we looked at. So the swastika is a Hindu symbol. The next symbol, and this is the last symbol we're going to look at, is the Om. Now, what you're seeing here are 3 letters from the Sanskrit alphabet. And when pronounced, they make the sacred sound. And so they're pronounced Om, and they're used in meditation. So when you hear somebody who is a Hindu meditating, this is what they're going to say. They're going to pronounce this because they're pronouncing this sacred sound, this holy sound. It's also going to be the first syllable in any prayer. If you start to pray, the first thing you're going to say is Om. And so that's going to be the first word, the first syllable that comes out of the mouth of a Hindu when they pray. and it symbolizes the universe or ultimate reality, what really is. And it also represents the three aspects of God, the three letters, the three aspects of God. And so these are two symbols of Hinduism, the swastika and the Om. So this isn't, it looks kind of, this one here looks kind of like a Islamic symbol. It kind of looks like Arabic, but it's not. It's Sanskrit, the language of Sanskrit. Now let's take a look at Hindu practices. What do Hindus do? And this isn't an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but it is representative of what Hindus do. And so we have 6 things: the puja, the japa, meditations, rites of passage, annual feasts, and pilgrimages. And so we're going to go through each of these in turn. And so first is the puja. And by the way, I should say I'm pronouncing all these words, and I really have no idea how they're pronounced. I'm pronouncing them like I think they would be pronounced in Sanskrit. Not that I know Sanskrit, but Sanskrit's related to Greek, and I do have an idea about how to pronounce Greek. And so if you know the way these words are supposed to be pronounced and I'm butchering it, you'll have to forgive me for that. And so the puja is the first practice of Hinduism that we have listed here. And the word means reverence or honor. And it would typically be done in a morning worship ritual, although it can be done at any time and often is done at any time. But morning time, I think, is the traditional time in which it was done. It involves offering light, flowers, food, or water to the divine. And you'll notice in the picture here, there's a light there. That person is holding a lamp there. So there is light. You see flowers all around the idol that's in the middle. You see food and water that is before the idol. And the divine being that you're worshiping is represented by this idol. And so this is a representation of the divine being. So this is the puja. Secondly is the japa. The japa. And this is the meditative repetition of a mantra or the divine name. And so they would say then whatever their mantra is, and the divine name. So this is the japa, and it's often done with prayer beads. And that's just a way that they can use to keep track of their meditation, or this repetition, this mantra. And this brings in the general aspect of meditation, something else that Hindus practice. And there's many different kinds of meditation that we know that Hindus use. 2 of the more popular ones are yoga and dhyana. And so, of course, we hear yoga and we associate that with it. And the picture there kind of depicts how this is done. And the purpose of these meditations is to realize the union of one's eternal self. So it's to connect to your inner self, find your inner being, so to speak. And so this is the purpose of these meditations. The next practice is the rites of passage. And with these rites of passage, they're called the sanskara, and that just means preparing. So a rite of passage is preparing to do something. There's a list of things that people have these rituals for. They perform a ritual for marriage. If they make a sacrifice, if they have an offering, they'll do these rites of passage. A lot of it's connected to conception and having a baby, but it's even used for things like going to school, where the person they go through this rite of passage where they are recognized by their teacher. And I'm not exactly sure which rite of passage is depicted in this picture. It could be marriage, but it could also be that this young man is preparing to sit under this teacher. The next rite of passage is annual feasts, their annual feasts. There are three main annual feasts for Hindus. There's the Diwali, which is the New Year's festival, happens in late October, early November. It's called the Festival of Lights, and it focuses on knowledge. To the Hindus, lights equal knowledge. The second main feast is the Holi, and it marks the coming of spring. And so the first one marks the new year, the second one marks the coming of spring, and finally we have the Dussehra. I think that's how you pronounce that. I don't know. But this is, in particular, I didn't have enough room on the slide to include this, so let me just tell you about this. But this one marks the god Rama's triumph over evil Ravana. And so this is one god triumphing over an evil god. This happens in September, and this is where dances and plays are done depicting the life of the god Rama. Now, the picture you see on your screen, this is a picture of the Holi festival. And in this festival, they would have bonfires, and they'd cover themselves in colored water and powder. And you can see that there, where these girls have covered themselves in water and this colored water and powder. The final practice of Hindus that we're going to look at is pilgrimages. And so often, religions have certain pilgrimages that they want the faithful to do. And so a pilgrimage is a journey to a holy site where it's believed that there are special religious powers that are there, or it's a special religious experience. If you've ever been to Israel, now in evangelical Christianity, we do not have pilgrimages. But there are parts of the wider Christianity, I'm using that in the broadest possible way, where they do have pilgrimages. And if you've ever gone to Israel, you've probably noticed big groups of Roman Catholics who are going on a pilgrimage to Israel. And while we as evangelical Christians would be interested in the historical and biblical relevance of different sites in Israel and in the Holy Land, oftentimes the Roman Catholics, the Orthodox folks, they're going to go to churches where they believe that they have significance, and really they're going on a pilgrimage. We see the same thing in Islam. Now, in Hinduism, pilgrimages are not required. They're not required, but they are a way to achieve moksha. They are a way to help you achieve your salvation. And there are many sites where Hindus can go on pilgrimage. I'm going to mention one here at the end. So let me ask a question here. Why study this? Why are we studying Hinduism? And so first, we might find it interesting to learn something new about the world we live in. And as I've been studying this, I have found it very interesting to learn about what Hinduism is, what Hindus believe, what they practice, their holy books. But the purpose of this study is to help us understand the background and beliefs of Hindus so that we can more effectively witness to them. So our purpose isn't just merely to learn, Learning is a means to the end so that we might be better witnesses to them about the salvation that is only found in Jesus Christ. Now, according to the Pew Research Organization, less than 1% of North Carolinians are Hindu. So North Carolina does not have a huge population of Hindus. However, it is a growing population. More and more Hindus are coming into North Carolina for various reasons. In fact, in Morrisville, which is right outside of Cary, there's a Hindu temple. And this Hindu temple has been named as a pilgrimage site. So people in North Carolina, Hindus in North Carolina and surrounding areas, can go to this Hindu temple in Morrisville on their pilgrimage. And just if you want to know more information, there's a website dedicated to Hindus in North Carolina, and you can see the address right there. You can look it up, and you can find more things about what's happening with Hinduism in North Carolina. So I hope this at least forms some type of foundation for you in understanding Hinduism. It's important to know who we're talking to, know what they believe, know what the basis is for their belief, and know what the basis is for their practices. What do they do in their practices of following their religion? Now, next week, we're still going to be looking at Hinduism, but we're going to be looking at their concept of salvation or moksha. How do you become, what is salvation in particular in Hinduism, and how is it achieved? How is it realized? How do you become saved? And we'll also be looking at their view of Jesus Christ. What do they say about Jesus? Who is Jesus according to their religion? What do they say about who he is, what he did on the earth? Do they even believe that he was actually on the earth? So we're going to be looking at that. Well, look forward to sharing with you this next lesson next Sunday evening. The Lord bless you.